seen tattoo policies affect application response and ability to be hired?
I haven't seen that. I do know some of my clients for their front line positions, you know, that front desk person, they definitely want to keep certain appearances. So if I do have candidates for them that do have tattoos, I do advise them, please make sure they're covered while you're going to work. They're not offended by it, but they want a certain representation for their offices. I personally have 9 tattoos, but she didn't see a single one today.
I think that more companies nowadays, so I have not seen that either. I think more companies nowadays are really looking at diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And I think that's, you know, all different types of people and that type of thing. So I think there, to me, that sounds a little bit dated. And being more inclusive, to me, seems to be more of the norm, and it's the right thing to do. So.
Okay. Next question is, what has been the trend in more flexible or creative earning of vacation or sick time, and how has that impacted employee engagement? I'll put this here so y'all don't have to keep Please, you know.
So to give that question more context, we were kind of discussing, we see some companies that don't require vacation time, like just take it as you please. And what some of these companies actually seen is that the employees take less time because they feel not pressured to take the time. So it's actually helped with productivity and so forth. So have you guys heard any strange or any stories about that?
So we did that at Tribune. So what he's talking about is implementing unlimited vacation or unlimited really PTO. So that means, you know, you get however, 2 weeks for the first year, all that goes away. So you do not have any time, right? So in a way, it helps the employees be able to manage their work-life balance a little bit more, life-work, I learned from you, to be able to balance that a little bit more and, you know, be there for the things that are needed. Now, obviously, there were guidelines that your manager had to approve. You know, your manager can say no based on business need. You know, there was definitely criteria, but what we saw, there was worry about that, right? There's also other benefits. You know, your company's not holding that liability of it being on the books. It goes away, right? So it's good for the business. Now, what employees have to realize is, you know, a lot of companies, when you leave, you get paid out your vacation or like whatever that you haven't used or sick time or whatever. You don't have that anymore, so you're not getting a payout at the end, right? So there's good and bad that you have to weigh as your company, but for the most part, and we actually did it because we were a very large organization. So we did it where people that were exempt were unlimited PTO. People that were not, because we needed them there every day, they were press workers and people making the newspaper and things like that, that we couldn't do that. So we actually looked at their amount of time and actually gave them more time. So they had more flexibility in how they could use it versus you have this number of sick days, you have this number of, because then, you know, people weren't feeling like they could move around the buckets and people were getting disciplined for that. So we kind of took the unflexibility, gave them a little bit more days, took the unflexibility away from them. And we were worried also that it was going to be, we read everything that says people take actually less time and that type of thing than they normally would with their allocated days and everything. And we were worried that, you know, people would abuse it. But then we went back to everybody, let's use good judgment. And I can't think of a single time that I know about that we had to discipline somebody from either abusing it, taking too much, nothing like that. And we also had to educate the managers. You can't just say no just because you want them at work. You can't just say no, right? Because that defeats the purpose. So there was a lot of education involved, but if you do the education at the time you roll it out and really work on it, I found it to be incredibly successful. And Kevin was my partner in the Icebreaker, and he also had done that. He's not here anymore, but he had also done that, and he said it was fabulous, and I agree it's fabulous.
Next question is answered to Nilda. Where can people find data that you obtained today? Like, what are some of the resources to that?
Oh, I just made it all up. No, actually, we use 2 products at CareerSource. One is Lightcast, and the other product is JobsEQ, Reach More Economics, which is all, and the back data is all Bureau of Labor Statistics data, but we can share the PowerPoint. Okay, so after this, I think Evan or someone from our team will share the PowerPoints from everyone so you have them. And each slide has the data sources on there, at least maybe some of the parameters. But if there's something in there that you are particularly interested in diving deeper into, then just shoot us a note back and we'll work with our teams to dig a little deeper for y'all.
The next question, actually Mike wants to answer this one. If we are moving away from college careers and how we will transition students from high school to the workforce successfully.
I think we need to identify what that means, college and careers. Actually, we are not moving away from college and careers, we're pushing more to college and careers. We have to identify, first of all, what is college, all right? College is a lot more than it used to be when I went to school. It was going to get your 4-year degree. But college means so many different things now. College, yes, is master's degree and doctorate degrees and BS degrees, but it also is going to your state college here and getting very specific degrees that get you jobs in our area. It is getting certifications at Lake Technical College. That can be a 1-year program, it can be a 3-month program, it can be a 6-week program. Those are also certifications that are college, right? So as a high school principal, I encourage all kids to go to college. Just what is college, right? You still need that extra step. You still need that extra amount of training to get you specific to where you want to go. But it's also very important to get kids to understand that we don't go to college for the experience anymore, right? Going and getting a degree for the experience costs you about $100,000. I know I spent 2 kids to college for the experience that don't use their degrees right now and do quite well, right? But dad was stuck with a big bill. The college experience is very expensive. We've got to teach our kids in high school, make sure you go into college for the right reasons, be specific to where you're going. If you know what you want to do, and it requires a 4-year degree, by all means, we want you to be prepared for going there. And our job in high school is to get kids prepared to what they want to go as their next step, right? And yes, we still want them to get a little further in education, but let's be specific to it. The rest of that question too is about how do we learn about the kids, how do we get them involved in blue-collar jobs? And business has to be involved in education. That is the key. We can't say education, it's your job. You get them ready, we'll take them when they're here. There is a partnership that must exist. And you as HR, as leaderships and businesses have to get into the schools and find out what the trends are. What is it that kids want? Believe me, when they're sitting right here, go talk to her. If you want to find out what kids want as benefits, they know. They're with them every day. I understand that. I was with teenagers every day. I understand what their needs are and what they want. It's not the same. But you know what? Kids are kids. People ask me all the time, I can't believe how different kids are now. Guess what? Kids aren't different. Kids are the same as when we were kids. The environment that they grow up in, the tools around them are much different than what we grew up with kids. We didn't have the phone in our hand. We didn't have all of those things. When kids are kids, they still want the same things, but the environment they're growing up in is much different. But my answer there, get involved with the school. They have advisory committees for every single program, for every single CTE program at the K-12, at the tech colleges, at the state colleges. They have advisories. Get on those advisories, get involved, find out what's going on in school, and your input is welcome to those schools. They need you to know how to teach kids what is current trends. All right, soapbox, I'll get off of it and let y'all continue.
All right. Mike kind of went, he did 2 questions all in one, so as y'all can tell, I like to stay on time. So next we're gonna go to how do we decide that bringing people back from remote work back to in-office is a good idea and vice versa.
That's a tough one. I would say you have to lead with 2 things. The first being, is there a business need? to bring people back. And I think you gotta just keep sticking to that. There's a business need, we need you back in the office, if that's true, right? There's a business need, we're either shifting our work or doing it differently, or we're ready to get back to, the way we were, but just keep relying on, there's a business need. I think, the other thing, I think you can also look at, it's a little more squishy, but it would be, how is working remotely impacting your culture? If you're seeing that your culture is suffering, you previously were a organization that really thrived and operated on relationships and, being, next door to each other, just talking to each other, those types of things, I think that you can also kind of hang your hat on that. I know we've recently during COVID, before COVID, 100% in the office. Then we went 100% out of the office for like a year. Then we went hybrid, and then now we've been kind of playing with how many days out of the office. So we've, keep moving it. But really, when we look at it, we really tie it to business need. And there are some individuals that have opted out along the way because we just can't accommodate them, unless they have a medical reason and accommodation or those types of things. But, you have to be prepared for that, but you have to do what's right by the business. That's how you know.
The only thing else I'll add to that, just engaging business and just looking at, some of the research and things that are out. And also just overseeing operations myself through my career is also looking at roles. So while everyone in the company has their role, whether you do remote or hybrid or in person, I think you also have an opportunity to double click on the function of the role. So if you're 100% customer facing, it's going to be really hard for you to do remote work. But if your audit department or your finance department can do most of their work, 80% of their work remotely and do it well, then maybe there's some flex. And so I guess the other thing I'd see is that while it doesn't, I would say think about equity and not always feel like everything has to be equal, because there's some business needs and some functions that do work that way. And there may be some savings depending on what your bottom line is if you were to figure out what that looks in a variety of ways based on your function. And I think that's been one of the challenges, honestly, that our company's gone through is, does everybody have to be on the same schedule? What does that look like? But being a very front-facing organization, it's hard to continue doing some of our work 100% remote or even somewhat hybrid.
And our last question, how do we see language communication and how does that play into the impact of employability in Central Florida?
Okay, I'm trying to figure out language. Okay, are you talking communication styles or language like English language? So whoever wrote this one, I'm sorry. English language. Oh, okay. I think it's definitely an area where we have to think about it as a workforce upskilling area. A lot of times, previously, I think folks were like, well, we'll just work through it. But I think long term, it's how do we help folks grasp more of the language and then be able to help them with mobility, upward mobility within a company. We've done some work with some hotels and also with some other businesses to really upskill their talent in grasping more English, and even English language coupled with occupational language. So how we do basic language and also put it in occupational context. We see that that's worked really well. Also making sure that there's opportunity for immersion so that we're not just teaching the theory of English, but really making it conversational and engaging. And we've seen that that's really worked. We have some hotels within Central Florida that actually have language skill classes at their place of employment. And if it's a 3-hour class, the employer pays 2 hours and the employee is pretty much giving up 1 hour. So there's mutual buy-in from the employee and the employer to increase language skills.
All right, well, let's give it up for our panel. So we're gonna close out. We're gonna get up to the rest of these prizes. Real quick, what I wanted to do